Welcome to the HSP Podcast. I'm Julie Bjelland, and today I want to talk about reasons why highly sensitive people might feel challenged making friends. So there's lots of different reasons, and I thought it would be kind of validating to talk about why you might struggle. And maybe you have made friends, but maybe you're struggling to connect or just feel like you're on the same page with each other, feel like it's an equal balance, things like that. So one of the things that comes up a lot is overstimulation. We tend to be overstimulated by a lot of things that are going on around us. You might hear some seagulls in the background, by the way. I love the sound of that. I just moved recently near the water, and at a certain time of day, they get loud. Isn't it funny how we like certain sounds, but other sounds are a problem? So I really love the sounds of seagulls. So getting back to what I was talking about, I haven't done one of these podcasts for a while where I just talk about a subject and I'm not talking with another person or hosting or interviewing. So I thought it'd be kind of fun to talk about this subject. So back to overstimulation. We can get overwhelmed by noisy environments, things that feel kind of chaotic, and that can be difficult for us to relax, to engage in social situations. And also, I know for myself too, I find it like I have to plan a day of rest before and after a social engagement. And I know a lot of HSPs are like that. So we might not be the type of friend that can go out and say yes every day to all the things that our friends are asking us to do. And that's going to be an important thing that we need to be able to talk about with our friends. I'm also going to get into some tips that can help, but first I'll talk about some of the challenges. And another thing is that we really want to have meaningful connections. A lot of us don't feel very fulfilled by shallow relationships or surface level relationships where you can't go deep. You know, we want to be able to talk about something deep and profound and connect. And a lot of times we're only really able to do that with other HSPs. And since we are the minority, you know, there's only maybe about 20 to 30% of the population are HSPs. The majority of people around us are not HSPs. So in that sense, I know for myself, I tend to connect more with other highly sensitive people. I feel like we can be deep with each other. It's important for us to have meaning and fulfillment in our lives and in our relationships and our friendships. And so that kind of depth can take time to reach, to form, and might not happen quickly if we are seeking friendships. Like I just moved to a new area and I don't know a lot of people in this area, so I'm kind of thinking about this subject for myself too. Like I want to be selective, I want to be conscious of who I spend time with and who I connect to, and really one or two people that I can deeply connect to is enough for me. I don't need a huge group, and in fact that can feel overwhelming. Another challenge is just the emotional intensity that we feel. We might feel more emotional than those people around us, and I think there's a lot of complexity in the depth of our emotions as well, which means that other people might have a hard time understanding us. I know many of us have experienced that feeling. Maybe, having a different emotional temperament can be challenging sometimes to feel understood and a sense of belonging in that friendship. And we have a need for authenticity. We really want to have genuine, authentic connections, and we struggle with things that are superficial, might feel kind of insincere, and that's something that is important to us, to have authentic connections. And some of us might have some social anxiety. Maybe that inhibits some of our social interactions. Maybe we fear judgment or rejection. And, many of us have been told from a young age that something's wrong with sensitivity. So hopefully you've been listening to all the episodes and you're realizing that there's nothing wrong with sensitivity. And in fact, it's a really beautiful trait. But that's a difficult thing too, to experience, to feel different, to feel misunderstood in social situations can create a sense of anxiety. We might also have emotional and empathy overload. And, we have high levels of empathy, and that can mean that we're taking on emotional burdens of others. And emotional overload can be very draining, very tiring, and it could lead us to spend a lot of time alone to recover. And I know that's a lot of what I experience, and many HSPs experience, is that we need a lot of downtime. We need a lot of alone time. And there can be too much alone time. So we always have to try to find that balance. For me, it's like a delicate balance, whether I'm, overwhelmed and overloaded, or I'm not having enough social interaction. So I always have to try to work on that balance and pay attention to how I'm feeling to try to find that balance. Another thing that we might be challenged by is that many of us are by nature perfectionists. We might be struggling. I always say HSPs are either perfectionists or recovering perfectionists. We really set high standards for ourselves, and we set high standards for others. And this can make it challenging to accept the imperfections in potential friends, or even to tolerate minor conflicts. That perfectionism can get in the way of building deeper connections. We also might have trouble setting boundaries. It might be hard for us to set boundaries. And that can lead to an imbalance in the friendship. We can feel overwhelmed by the demands of others. We can feel taken advantage of. We can feel resentment. Resentment is really the killer to relationships. It really damages relationships when there's resentment present. So that tends to be an area that we struggle in as HSPs, is to create healthy boundaries, to set those boundaries. And some of us might experience a fear of rejection, that we're maybe afraid to put ourselves out there. And maybe it's hard for us to even be vulnerable. And connection is formed through vulnerability. So that's an area that many of us have to work on, that ability to put down those walls in areas that we might feel safe. And how do we do that? These are all areas that we work on as sensitive people. And we really have a lot of self-care needs as highly sensitive people. As I was saying, we need a lot of downtime. We need to recharge. We need recovery time. We have to limit the amount of engagements we have. These are all things that can be challenging in forming new friendships. And so let's talk about some of the tips. But before that, I would love to hear from you. If you go to hsppodcast.com, you can find this episode and leave a comment. I'd love to hear from you. Did you resonate with the areas that I named for feeling challenged? Did you feel like some of those matched you? Does this feel validating to even hear some of this? I've worked with thousands of HSPs all over the world, and as an extremely sensitive person myself, these are all areas that I've seen many of us feel challenged in. So let's talk about what can help. Working on embracing us, who we are as sensitivity, as sensitive people. Self-acceptance. Are you able to accept who you are? Can you recognize your unique qualities? And this is an area many of us have to work on. I know before I understood about the trait, before I worked on my own self-growth and work on my inner self, I struggled with self-acceptance. I thought I was too sensitive because that's what I was told in my upbringing and society. And when you receive that message, it's hard to feel self-acceptance. And I found many of us as sensitive people can even hide who we are. There's a part of us that hides like the real us. And that can make it difficult to form meaningful connections if we don't show up as our true self. So really working on self-acceptance is a big part of that, and educating yourself about sensitivity. Like, I'm so glad you're listening to this podcast. This is a great place to learn about sensitivity. I have so many resources on my website too that give information about the trait, and really learning about yourself is going to help lead to stronger connections with others.
This material in an excerpt from a longer podcast or video. Follow link in description to learn more.